Welcome to the Macarium. In this video, we'll show you how Carl builds a shed on a gravel foundation. An ideal location is level or nearly level. The location is marked on a proper size. Carl digs the ground and stacks the beams. The beams are joined by the piece of rebar for the strength of the pad. He starts grading the ground and tamps it down to get a firm surface. After the ground is compacted, the garden weed control fabric should be added. This is essential for keeping the gravel from sinking and weeds from growing. Then the gravel is added and spread evenly. Compacting the gravel is very important, as the surface should be leveled. Now Carl starts creating the frame, nailing the joists down to the skids. The band boards are installed and the base is squared off. As all are in place, the excellent framing is finished. This is an insulation hardboard foam with a radiant heat barrier. It will be cut and placed right between the joists on pre-prepared little shelves. Now, all the gaps are filled with the spray foam and the seams are taped. For a more secure platform, an OSB subfloor is being installed. The plywood is attached with adhesive and then screwed. This makes the whole structure much more rigid. This is a truss of a barn-style roof. Stay with us. The installation process you'll see in the next scenes. Now Carl starts laying out the wall flat. After marking the bottom plate, the studs are being nailed to it. The top plate is installed and the window frames are settled. The external plates are doubled to add strength and durability. The proper places are left for further insulation, so the back wall is framed and lifted up. The second wall is the simplest since it doesn't have any windows. The joists are nailed to the frame and the floor in the same way as the previous one. The two walls are matched up with the overlapping top plate with the back one and nailed. Then Carl moves on to the other end wall, which has a window. He makes a window header using two pieces of plates. He sets the header and installs the top cripples, so this one is framed and mounted too. And the last, the entrance wall, is ready with two windows and a door. So the front wall is raised and installed between already standing walls. The window header is being fixed to be supported by the cripples on either side. The next step is to frame out the loft floor. To maximize headroom in the loft space, the joists are mounted just below the top plates. So the subfloor will sit flush with them once installed. Each joist is both nailed and screwed into the nearest stud. Then Carl installs an additional plate under the joists to firm them. He mounts the OSB subfloor, putting construction adhesive underneath it, and nails them. This helps with the rigidity. So the promised scene of installing the barn-style roof trusses. They were pre-sized and fit tightly into place along the measured marks. Each truss is nailed into place, and then a couple of angle braces are added at the end. For the firmness of the frame, strong metal ties are screwed on the upper and lower sides of all the walls. The wall sheathing is primarily what gives the structure its rigidity, so the panels should be nailed as thoroughly as possible. The panels are lifted and the window openings are cut out. For sheathing the second floor, 4 studs are being installed under the end trusses. To permanently fasten the floor of the loft down, construction adhesive is used along the top of each joist. These OSB panels should be set onto the roof trusses. To protect the building on rainy days, plastic roofing is a great temporary solution. Installing the roof sheathing is difficult to do alone, so having an extra couple of hands is essential. Once the trusses are locked into their final positions, metal ties are added on the inside for reinforcement. OSB panels are then mounted to the outside of the trusses and nailed securely. The same process is done on the upper pitch of the roof. The sheets are overhung at the ends of the building for coverage, and properly sized panels are prepared and attached. The sheathing on the lower pitch of the roof is cut to install the skylight window. An ice and water shield is applied directly to the sheathing. This is especially important in winter, when ice dams can form and cause significant damage. Then, underlayment is installed over the shield, extending all the way to the edges of the roof. It helps catch any water that may get beneath the shingles and directs it down and off the roof. The lower layers should be overlapping with the upper ones. This material is more durable, resists tearing when walked on, and offers better water resistance. The rake and drip edges should be installed over the underlayment to direct the rain onto the underlayment instead of soaking into the sheathing. After the underlayment is done, it's time to start shingling. First, Carl installs the starter strips, then lays the shingles one by one. The other side of the roof is more complicated due to the skylight. Carl uses adhesive flashing tape along all sides of the skylight, making sure that no rain can get inside. Rolled mesh is especially well suited for the ridge of the roof, as opposed to the rigid plastic type. The ridge cap shingles also provide a clean, attractive finish. House wrap provides a great deal of water resistance for the building. Carl uses cap nails to attach the wrap to the sheathing, then cuts out the window opening. To prevent air or water from entering the building, he applies flashing tape. For more protection, he covers the corners with the tape and then attaches the whole frame. The flashing adheres securely and seals the edges effectively. Installing the window doesn't require much effort. It fits the frame perfectly and is secured with screws on all sides, ensuring it doesn't interfere with opening or closing. Afterwards, flashing tape is applied and sealed tightly. The entrance door is installed using the same steps as the windows. First, the frame is fully covered with flashing tape, followed by applying construction adhesive on all sides. The door is then set into place and properly aligned with the frame. Hinges are installed, and to prevent cold air or water from entering, any gaps around the frame are filled with foam along the entire perimeter. Window casing provides additional protection against water entering the building. Using a cutting tool, the top angle of the sill is trimmed to ensure a precise fit around the window. The casing is then mounted, nailed securely, and spray painted. Adhesive is applied to both the upper and lower edges of the casing. Once one window is completed, the process is repeated for the others. Vinyl siding is installed over house wrap to protect the building from moisture, starting with the corner posts. Next, sidings are added around the windows and doors. Tabs and miters are cut so that any water is directed away from the structure. A starter strip is installed along the bottom edge, and a finish strip is placed at the top to hold the final pieces. Carl hooks the panels into the starter strip and snaps them in place. Each siding panel is cut to size and then nailed loosely, typically in the center of the nailing slots, to allow the material to move slightly with expansion and contraction due to temperature fluctuations. The panels are custom cut to fit around obstacles and trimmed for a uniform, professional appearance. The end result is a weather-resistant exterior that not only functions well but also provides a clean, attractive finish to the building. For installing electrical wiring in a shed, careful planning is essential. The first step is to map out the electrical needs, such as the number of outlets, light circuits, and power sources. Wiring cables are selected based on their capacity to handle different amperages, whether they are used for outlets or for lighting. The wires are fed into electrical boxes, which should be positioned about 12 inches off the floor for consistency. The main power line from the house is run through underground cables, following local regulations. This underground wiring is typically placed in a trench that is dug at a specified depth to protect it from physical damage, such as from digging or accidental impacts. The cable is then connected to a breaker panel inside the shed, where it can be distributed to individual circuits for lighting, outlets, and other electrical components. Proper grounding and insulation stripping are required before connecting the wires to the switches and outlets. After all wires are connected, the electrical system is tested for functionality. Baffles are installed in the ceiling rafters to ensure proper airflow towards the ridge vent, preventing moisture buildup in the roof. While the fiberglass batt insulation is used in other spaces, the craft facing should be positioned towards the interior side. Insulation is cut to fit snugly between studs and stapled into place, ensuring there are no gaps, which could compromise its insulating properties. Finally, Carl uses a combination of baffles and fiberglass insulation around the skylight and ceiling to ensure proper ventilation and insulation effectiveness. Safety precautions, such as wearing gloves, masks, and long-sleeved shirts, are a must due to the itchy nature of fiberglass. Once the insulation is complete, plasterboard panels should be installed on the walls, ceiling, and all relevant surfaces. The joints between the panels should be aligned as closer as possible. Anyways, the gaps or uneven areas will be filled with plaster later. It's essential to plan the placement of lights. Ensuring that the appropriate cutouts are made with precise shape and size. Accurate measurements of the interior space are crucial, panels should be carefully marked, and openings for windows and doors must be precisely cut. This is a labor-intensive process, so completing it without assistance is highly challenging. Additionally, locations for switches and outlets should be accurately cut out to ensure a professional result. Overall, the installation of plasterboard is a precise and intricate process that requires careful planning, accurate measurements, and attention to detail. For the complex shape of the ceiling, Carl carefully aligns the paper to follow the contours of it, then tapes the sheets together to create a single, cohesive template. Then marks the plasterboard and cuts along the lines. This method allows to recreate the exact shape of the ceiling without unnecessary effort or material waste. To achieve a smooth and flawless surface, the joints between the plasterboard panels must be properly treated and filled with plaster compound. Once again, Carl is joined by his wife, and together they take on this detail-oriented task, which demands both patience and precision. To ensure clean and even seams, Carl first applies joint tape over each connection before covering it with plaster compound. For the corners, he uses the same paper tape, which he shapes to fit the corner and fills it too. The last plasterboards are cut and mounted, and now the ceiling is being plastered with compound. This type of finish work usually takes a few coats. Apply the compound, let it dry, sand it, then apply another layer, let it dry again, sand it, and then decide if another layer is needed. When the final layer is dried and sanded, the first layer of paint is applied. After the paint has dried, Carl moves on to installing the lighting fixtures. Step by step, everything is coming together perfectly. The final electrical fixture is this heater. It's easy to install and simple to use. It connects to Wi-Fi so it can be turned on remotely. A pine trim is added to the front of the loft. It fits greatly to the interior with the other beams. To begin the staircase installation, the first step is to securely mount the main support metal pipe, which will provide a solid foundation for the entire structure. Once the pipe is in place, the assembling of the staircase itself can proceed. Both side panels must be carefully prepared, with precise cutouts made at the pre-measured locations to ensure a perfect fit. The slots are then cut, as these will function as hangers to securely attach the staircase to the pipe. The edges of the rails are sharp and should be rounded for safety and a more refined appearance. The side panels have been precisely cut to accommodate the exact number of steps, with even spacing to ensure both symmetry and structural balance. Next, the steps are cut and the rails are prepared, holes are carefully drilled where the steps will be mounted. Once the steps are placed, they fit perfectly into the holes. Adhesive glue is applied to secure the steps in place, followed by screws for added stability. The floor surface should be flat and cleaned before installing LVP. So, sanding and planing the surface is necessary to ensure a smooth base. Next, the underlayment is laid down. It helps minimize the impact of any remaining floor imperfections. When laying the planks, about a 1/4 inch gap between the planks and the walls should be left. This gap allows for natural expansion and contraction of the material. Additionally, the joints should be staggered in a random pattern to avoid creating repeating lines across the floor. It's important to mix planks from different boxes to ensure there are no repeating patterns in the wood grain. Finally, having the right toolkit on hand is essential. It makes the entire process much more comfortable and efficient. The next step is to install trim. Carl paints the pine boards white, cuts them to the proper sizes, and nails them to the walls. The transition from the door to the LPV is done too. The carpet underlayment is laid in the loft, and the carpet is in place too. Two boards were cut to finish the top and bottom sides of the beam, neatly completing the edges around the carpeted loft. The result turned out great, with a clean and polished finish. Carl cuts and reinforces the windowsills, then adds decorative panels around the window frames to give them a clean, finished look. On the exterior wall, he runs the electrical wiring and makes all the necessary connections. Then installs an old-style lantern, which provides both functional and decorative lighting. The door is painted black and gets a modern look. Now it's time to build the entry deck. Carl begins by constructing a wooden frame between the door and the edge of the gravel foundation. Wooden boards are then fastened on top using both nails and screws to ensure durability. The old bricks placed in front of the deck add a charming, old-fashioned touch, resulting in a sturdy and inviting entrance. So, the total cost of the shed came to $7,662, $4,900 for the exterior works, and $2,762 for all the interior works. The shed turned out to be very compact and comfortable in the end. Although the space isn't very large, the loft added some usable area, which can be used as an open bedroom. If you enjoyed this project and want to see more interesting builds, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for upcoming videos.